Yu Yu Hakusho's Hiei is the quintessential anti-hero. Condemned and abandoned from birth, he's had to fight and kill his entire life. And he bloody loves it. But like every scary, tough guy, if you scrape away at that initial murderous layer, you'll find, well, several more murderous layers. But under that, you'll eventually find a demon that cares deeply for his family and his friends. And that's not even really a hot take. I just really wanted to talk about Hiei and Yu Yu Hakusho again, so let's go. After you've liked, shared, subbed, commented, and hyped, you know the drill. I hate asking, but YouTube says I need to. Hiei makes his first appearance in this series in chapter 20, alongside Kurama, another soon-to-be main character, and Goki, who's either dead or imprisoned after his fight with Yusuke, which is a good thing. The guy ate kids' souls. Kill him. This deadly trio have raided Spirit World's treasure collection and have absconded with 3 powerful magic items: the Mirror of Darkness, the Rapacious Orb, and the Conjuring Blade, otherwise known as the Forlorn Hope, the Orb of Bast, and the Shadow Sword, depending on your translation. To cut a short story even shorter, Yusuke defeats Goki and works with Kurama, who isn't actually bad anymore, to save his human mother with a wish from the Forlorn Hope. With 2 out of the 3 treasures secured, Yusuke is minding his own business when Hiei finally makes his move. Using his Jagan Eye, which I'll explain more on soon, Hiei spies on Yusuke and through his interaction with Keiko, identifies her as a target to gain the spirit detective's attention. Using his stolen treasure, he attacks Keiko and begins the process of turning her into a demon, and at the same time, he sends a psychic message to Botan, Yusuke's handler, telling her that if Yusuke wants her back, he has to meet him and hand over the other 2 treasures he had recovered. Yusuke agrees, punches his way through some mind-controlled humans and confronts Hiei, who he hands the treasure over to and then immediately attacks. Hiei is quick. He dodges this surprise attack with no issue and then mocks Yusuke with the reveal that he's begun the process of turning Keiko into one of his demon slaves. Once this third eye opens, Keiko's fate will be sealed. As Botan works to suppress the transformation, Hiei goads Yusuke into a fight by letting him know the cure to this process is inside the hilt of the sword. Locked in now that his love interest is in danger, Yusuke overcomes the speed gap between the two and clocks Hiei across the jaw, leaving Hiei mad as hell. Hiei then makes a big deal about his speed, zipping around everywhere until Yusuke again clocks him, remarking that his speed is nothing special. Hiei, now taking his opponent seriously, calls upon the power of his Jagan Eye to transform into, well, this. Yeah. I swear, I'll talk about the Jagan Eye, just give me a minute, this part is almost done. Now at full power, Hiei uses this transformed state to increase his powers and manages to exert a binding curse that paralyzes Yusuke, who he proceeds to beat like a drum. As he makes his killing blow, an indebted Kurama takes the sword thrust intended for Yusuke and uses his own blood to blind Hiei and lessen his Jagan Eye's power. Yusuke and Hiei have a far more even fight, and Yusuke uses a cleverly ricocheted spirit gun blast to hit Hiei from behind, defeating him. Despite the fact that Hiei is covered in eyes, he couldn't see the shot coming from behind him. Is what it is. Keiko is saved. Kurama has earned some good boy points ahead of his trial, and Hiei and Goki are both arrested. Job's a good one. So Hiei is a bad guy motivated by power, with a deep hatred of humans and a mistrust of his own allies, who he intended to betray as soon as he got a chance to anyway. Far from the version I mentioned at the start, but Hiei, as he was introduced, was always intended to be a one-time villain. Togashi had recognized the staying power of Kurama early on, but didn't foresee the popularity of Hiei, which means Togashi now had the difficult task of providing enough characterization and background for Hiei that his turn to the good side would be believable. And he did a pretty good job. Step 1 was to make sure we never saw that transformation again. I mean, it's just way too villainous of a look. It's also goofy as hell. So about the Jagan Eye. Told you I'd get there. It's a whole 130 odd chapters after the Jagan Eye's first use that we get a proper explanation as to its origin, abilities, and how Hiei gained it. And the reason Hiei has it is inextricably linked to his own origin. Hiei was born to an ice maiden mother atop a floating castle. Due to his very existence being a crime, he was thrown from the edge to the wildlands of Demon World below, where he was expected to die in infancy. Ice maidens, as you can gather from the name, are all female. They reproduce via parthenogenesis, which is essentially when an unfertilized egg develops into an embryo without the need for a second genetic donor. However, if an ice maiden is intimate with a man, the result is that they will always give birth to a male offspring, and in doing so will perish during childbirth. Someone should probably let Kuwabara know. Despite being born a twin, there is no mercy to be shown to Hiei, who is bundled up in warded cloth and sorrowfully dropped to his death, whilst his sister Yukina is raised amongst the Ice Maidens. Except that, obviously, Hiei didn't die. And bad luck for the Ice Maidens because he could see and hear everything that happened since he was in the womb, which means that they made an enemy out of one of the most ruthless demons alive. If you know Yu Yu Hakusho, then you're aware that Hiei and Yukina are twins and that only Hiei knows this out of the pair. And in fact, he has gone to some length to ensure she never finds out the truth. Yukina explains that an Ice Maiden, when giving birth, sheds a single tear that becomes a crystal, which is then given to that child, and she is on the search for a demon with an ice crystal tear like hers. So what does this have to do with the Jagan Eye? Well, after only 5 years of being alive, Hiei had grown to the level of an A-class demon. He was set on finding his former home and taking his revenge on those that had cast him out, starting with Rui, a friend of his mother's whose only wish was that when he eventually did come to take his revenge, he would begin by taking her life in atonement for what she had done to him. Okay, so I got a lot of things wrong just then. Hiei kind of gave up on the idea of revenge very early on because he got too obsessed with killing people. He had way too much fun. Couldn't even be bothered to go and find the ice people, the ice maidens. So yeah, I don't know how I got that so wrong, but I did. And I wanted to just put a little correction in there before people come at me. I'm sorry. I'm just a man. I'm just a man, for God's sake. Hiei had the power. Now he needed the tools to locate the castle and his sister. Hello, me again. I got that bit wrong too. Essentially, what I got wrong was Hiei actually is only really looking for the ice castle as well as his lost crystal tear, which he lost in a fight. That's why he needed the Jagan Eye. He wasn't looking for Yukina, and despite the fact he claims to remember everything from the womb, he doesn't seem to be aware that he has a twin sister. Which I don't know if that's technically a retcon or whatever, but he only becomes aware of Yukina once he travels to the ice castle where the ice maidens all live. He only becomes aware of Yukina's existence after he's gone to the ice maiden castle and figures out that he has a sister out there somewhere in human world by that time. So yeah, doesn't quite remember everything, does he? And neither do I, apparently, so we got that in common. Hopefully that's the last mistake. I jinxed myself now. All right, bye. Having approached Shigure the osteopath, he offered to transplant the Jagan Eye into Hiei, the price for this being that Hiei can never reveal to his sister that he is the brother she was searching for. He didn't want money or anything like that, it seems. Shigure is kind of in it to fuck with people, which is kind of demony. That's the most demony thing I can imagine, actually. The transplant was a success. Hiei now had the Jagan Eye. However, the surgery itself was so agonizing and brutal on his body that his power level dropped to that of an infant, which is why a few years after he was so easily defeated by Yusuke, who would only just come into his own powers. Fast forward some more time, and Hiei is already back up to A-class levels by roughly the time of the start of the Three Kings saga. The Jagan Eye grants Hiei the following abilities: mind control of weak humans and demons, telepathy, telekinesis, and remote viewing. It's also heavily implied that the Jagan Eye helped Hiei in taming the Dragon of the Darkness flame, and of course we can't forget the one-time used Jagan Shi transformation. That's the Eye one. Importantly, the initial desire for the Jagan Eye was for its remote viewing ability. With it, Hiei intended to find his sister and its lost crystal tear, as well as the home of the ice maidens he wished to take revenge on. Speaking of his sister, Yukina is immediately introduced to us as the sister of Hiei by Koenma during her rescue arc in chapter 46. She's been abducted by mobsters who wish to sell her crystallized tears on the black market, and she is being held in a warded room that prevents Hiei from being able to see her with his Jagan Eye. Because up until this point, Hiei had been able to just check in on her whenever he felt like it without her knowing and never having to introduce himself. It's kind of weird, but it's also sweet. Once she's free, Hiei arrives and ensures that she's kept safe by Kuwabara and Yusuke. She thanks him and he awkwardly tries to sidestep any sort of invasive questioning. I think what really speaks to Hiei's character and his desire to protect those close to him can be epitomized by his relationship with Yukina. Like I said before, the condition for gaining the Jagan Eye was that Hiei was unable to reveal his identity to her, which is a condition he accepted gladly, stating that he never had the intention of telling her who he was in the first place. Hiei affirms that even if he were to win this battle, he still would not tell her. Hiei is both content with how things are, and at the same time, he's incredibly afraid of how things might change were he to reveal the secret to Yukina. The Jagan Eye was a useful tool to ensure that Yukina was safe. Importantly, from a distance. He had no intention of entering her life, either because he wanted to keep her safe, or because, as I also suspect, he feels unworthy of having a relationship with her. If sacrificing your power and enduring unimaginable agony just for the chance of glimpsing someone doesn't highlight how much Hiei cares, nothing will. And to speak on that feeling of unworthiness, Hiei remembers everything that happened to him since he was in the womb. he remembers being born, his mother dying as a result of giving birth to him, and Rui casting him out and begging that he return to take his revenge. Having been rejected from birth and being blamed for the death of his mother surely has to explain why he is so resistant to forming meaningful connections while still being able to care enough for a sister he hasn't even truly met until the events of Yu Yu Hakusho occur. The worst thing is, the Ice Maidens may have been correct about his nature. Hiei is violent and sinister. As a baby, you can see he's already plotting his revenge. He's quick to kill his enemies and is ruthless enough that he makes no qualms about it. And it's a good thing too, because the hesitancy of certain characters in the series to kill their enemies has almost led to their downfalls. Hiei swoops in to save the day by seemingly killing Sniper before he can kill Yusuke. And yet, he does it because Yusuke is his friend. Even if he tries to hide it behind a mask of only I'm allowed to beat you, we know that he cares. He even tricks Yusuke into blowing off some steam by pretending that he's going to kill him, which leads to a 10-minute long fight between the two. That's his boy. Honestly, my favorite moment in the series is after Yusuke has been killed by Sensui, and Hiei, Kurama, and Kuwabara all leap into Demon World to avenge him. Hiei, in the English dub of the anime at least, fires off a Dragon of the Darkness flame blast whilst cursing Sensui for what he's done. It took the death of his friend for him to be honest with his feelings. Again, in the English dub of the anime anyway.
Here's a one-way ticket for you straight to hell, you bastard!
In the manga, he just sort of appears mostly shocked, and that's about it. To round this off, I'm going to talk about Hiei and Mukuro and the incredibly dark relationship the two share. So, a content advisory warning here. Hiei is recruited by Mukuro, one of the three kings of Demon World, to join their side as the ongoing stalemate continues between them, Yomi, and Yusuke's ancestor, Raizen. Basically, all three of them have similar levels of strength, and each command a territory in Demon World. Raizen and Mukuro like things the way they are, and Yomi wishes to unify all of Demon World under his banner specifically. The timing of this recruitment coincides with Yusuke traveling to see his ancestor Raizen and learn more about himself, and Kurama being recruited by Yomi as one of his generals. The difference is that Kurama and Yomi were once comrades many years ago, and Yusuke and Raizen are family. Hiei is being recruited purely by reputation. As Mukuro puts it, he was an A-class demon by 5 years old. Wait, hold on, surely I think I read that wrong. No, oh no, yep, he was an A-class demon by 5 years old. Anyway, but he became a low-class bandit and then snuck off to human world for unknown reasons. We know why. It's because of the Jagan Eye surgery. Anyway, Mukuro wants to keep things in Demon World the same and is planning to attack Yomi once Raizen has fully starved himself to death and wants Hiei by their side as they do so. It's a very tempting offer for a homesick Hiei who no doubt sees this as an opportunity to get into some fights to the death and grow stronger. Maybe kill Mukuro and become king. Who knows? Upon arriving at Mukuro's lair, Hiei is put through 6 months of training and battles against other A-class demons, who he has killed, and is now ready for his shot at joining Mukuro's 77 hand-picked warriors. All he has to do is kill one and take their place. In exchange, Mukuro will even show Hiei their true face under all the wrappings and wardings they hide behind. Turns out, the warrior Hiei is supposed to face is Shigure the osteopath, the same doctor who gave Hiei his Jagan Eye. Shigure says that he will drop the condition of Hiei not being able to reveal who he is to Yukina if he can defeat him, which Hiei waves off. He's not interested in doing so at this time. He's made his peace with never letting her find out, and the two fight. In a very brief clash, Hiei sacrifices his arm and takes several slashes from Shigure, but the fight is technically a draw, with both combatants taking grievous wounds. Shigure has the top of his head cut off, but he's fine. Don't worry about it. He bounces right back. As Hiei remarks that the fight was a draw and praised his own performance as not bad, he catches himself off guard at being so complacent and satisfied with a draw in this way. Hiei's been through many fights, and the fact that he has found his sister and surrounded her with people that would ensure her safety, and that he ultimately trusts, Kuwabara included, he realizes that he's no longer battling with the same reasoning anymore. He's not that interested in revenge against the Ice Maidens anymore, and to be honest, he hasn't for quite some time. Not now that he knows his sister is away from them and is safe anyway. He's fighting now because that's all he can do? As a reward for his battle, Mukuro gifts him with the crystal tear that he had been given at birth and had lost during some point in his life in Demon World. Mukuro reveals her full self to a healing Hiei and sensitively reveals that having been born a slave and losing half of her body, she was an indiscriminate killer who, upon finding Hiei's crystal tear, began to heal emotionally and accept what had been done to her. This is the same for Hiei. He had used the value of his crystal tear as a youngster to entice people into trying to steal it so that he could battle them over and over. But over time, he realized that gazing at it and recalling his mother, he would soften and begin to find some sort of peace. Once he lost it, he punished himself by receiving the excruciating Jagan Eye surgery and losing all his power so that he could find it once again. It turns out that not long after this, Hiei had easily found the floating castle of the Ice Maidens. Having seen how pathetic the existence of the Ice Maidens truly is, he no longer really considered exacting his revenge as they all feared. Living secluded in an ice castle constantly in fear of those below is its own punishment. Hiei would go on to travel to human world in search of his sister, attempt to raise an army, get beaten by Yusuke, and then rescue Yukina. At which point he began to slowly lose his purpose as he searched for a good way to die. Skipping ahead the rest of the Three Kings saga and moving straight to the end, Hiei is working in Demon World helping to find humans that have accidentally wandered into Demon World and returning them before they can be killed, eaten, all that good stuff. Mukuro, having lost her tournament fight and is now just sort of hanging around, has become the object of Hiei's new desire to fight and live. On a particular day of the year when Mukuro is at her most volatile, Hiei walks up to her, asks for a fight because he's bored, and when he doesn't get one, he invokes the name Chico the Slave Trader. As a dark expression falls over Mukuro, Hiei uses his Jagan Eye to read her mind and learns of her dark history of being assaulted and abused since her birth. She had been surgically altered to her father's tastes, and every birthday he inflicted things that would definitely get me demonetized on YouTube if I mentioned it, so you can imagine. When asked by Hiei as to why he still lives, he sees a flash of memory, a brief moment of kindness and familial love between a young Mukuro and her father. As Mukuro clings to the single moment, Hiei mocks her and is almost killed for doing so. A rather miffed Hiei travels to see Kurama, and jokingly, Kurama recognizes this as being a lover's spat, which Hiei growls at but doesn't deny. He asks for a certain flower, which is a romantic gesture, until you realize that the flower in question bonds with a host and forces them to live forever, healing all their wounds. Hiei has brought the now parasitically bonded Chico to Mukuro. He informs her that the memory he has of his kindness is a fake that was implanted in her in order to prevent her from seeking revenge. Hiei stabs the now paralyzed Chico to prove the point that he can be forced to endure endless pain without dying, before turning to a now smiling Mukuro and wishing her a happy birthday. This is the sweetest, most romantic and dark thing I think I've ever read, and it's so on brand for a character like Hiei. I don't doubt for a second that he truly does like Mukuro, and the lengths he went to make her not only feel better, but also to help her heal her emotional state cannot be understated. Once he learned the truth of her upbringing, he brought all of that baggage upon himself and helped her in the only way he knew how, by finding her abuser and torturing him. He's not a hero in the traditional sense. And again, he's gone to such great lengths in Mukuro like he has for others throughout the series. Yes, Hiei is an anti-hero. He cares about the people he's closest to a lot, and ultimately, he's willing to do anything for them. He's motivated by the people around him, and whilst he can't verbalize it, his actions certainly speak louder than any words could. Pretty good for a one-time villain. Anyway, I've really enjoyed coming back to this series again. I'm not too sure what I've got coming up in the immediate future, but as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Say hi to your family from me, and peace.